Good morning, everyone. Happy International Youth Day. So we have an exciting hangout for you today. We have the members of our WFUNA Youth Network. We thought it was a good idea to celebrate with our WFUNA Youth Network and Youth Advisory Council. So we have Eduardo Morgante from the Youth Advisory Council, Hafidzi Rasali from UNA Malaysia, Linda Asaba from UNA Uganda, and Monica Licea from UNA Mexico. So as you know, the WFUNA Youth Network is an informal network comprised of United Nations associations and United Nations youth associations around the world, working to support and promote the ideals of the UN at the national level. So this hangout is organized in partnership with, of course, the Youth Advisory Council. So I would like to first start with Eduardo, so that Eduardo can speak to us about what is the Youth Advisory Council and what is the objective of the WFUNA Youth Advisory Council. Eduardo, please go ahead.
Thank you, Pablo, and happy International Youth Day, everybody. First of all, let me share with you guys how enthusiastic I am of being part of such an amazing group of people. It's really great to meet and talk with them almost on a monthly basis, often more frequently than monthly basis, and work with them on selected projects. Today, as Pablo anticipated, I will give you a very brief presentation on the YAC, what we are, what we do, and this will be organized into in three different sections. I will start with our purpose, then I'll let you know a little bit more into details how we have been elected, and then I'll let you know a little bit more about our work, what we do, how we organize our time that we devote to the activities of the YAC. The YAC stands for Youth Advisory Council. It is a new brand. Until last year, we were called Youth Advisory Board. It has changed recently. Our main goal is that of advising the Secretary General of WFUNA, Mr. Boyan Gohmadi, mainly on youth issues, directly and indirectly via the Youth Program Officer of WFUNA, Pablo, which, as the name suggests, focuses mainly on youth projects and initiatives. A second purpose, which still links to the one that I just mentioned, but has a specific strategic aim, is to improve the communication and the collaboration between the various UNAs and UNYAs. That's very, very important for us. So we were elected last year in November during the second WFUNA Youth Forum, which was held in conjunction with the 41st Plenary Assembly of WFUNA. Both events took place in Vancouver, Canada. And these are events that take place every 3 years. So it's a great event, like a lot of people gather. There were around 50 UNAs represented and over 200 participants. There were 15 candidates from really all over the world and only 10 available positions. It looks like an easy job. It wasn't to get elected. It was very competitive, a very, very fair and friendly process, very competitive. And only 9 representatives were elected because we only had 1 candidate for South America. Going a little bit more into details on voting procedures for the YAC, each and every UNA representative, meaning a young person between 18 and 30 years of age, officially endorsed by their UNA, present in Vancouver, had the right to cast 1 vote per each of the 10 available positions, organized in the 5 geographical regions: Africa, Asia, Europe, South America, and North America. So, for example, I could vote for Europe myself and somebody else, and then 2 people for North America, 2 people for Asia, 2 people for Africa, and so on and so forth. The youth representatives so elected stay in charge for 3 years. We were all very aware of that, and obviously this is something that is both a challenge and an opportunity. A challenge because many things can change in 3 years' time, especially at our age. But on the other side, it's really an opportunity, a great opportunity, because 3 years give you the time for actually do something and develop and embed performances in projects, which otherwise you wouldn't have the possibility to do. Focusing a little bit more on our work, since we have been elected, we organize our work into 3 main internal working groups that were established, followed by 3 external working groups, which were added later on. The 3 internal working groups are communications, resource development, and fundraising. Within these working groups, we are developing a number of projects, and in particular, we're focusing on the blog, on the youth network, on information management and sharing, in particular via Google Groups, webinars like this one that you are attending, youth seminars. The next one will take place in Malaysia towards the end of this year, and developing a fundraising strategy. This is for us extremely important, not only for us as a YAC, but also for the youth network in a broad term, because unfortunately when we were elected, we were not able to be supported, we were not supported by a stable and adequate funding, and we are still not. We would be able to do much more things if we had a stable and reliable source of funding. So what we are trying to do is to actually build a system which would provide us with some money for actually undertaking more complex projects and physically attending some important events. We do it already. Sometimes we manage to get some fundings, but there's not yet a very established way to do so, and we are working hard for this to happen as soon as possible. And then we created 3 external working groups, which are directly related to UN bodies or entities. These focus on gender equality, ICMYO, I will get back to that one later, and youth and peace building. For each of these working groups, Pablo has appointed a facilitator in order to facilitate the activity within the working group. So I'm currently facilitating the resource development working group. Mignote is facilitating communication, Afidzi fundraising, Fahmida gender equality, Ralph Johnson, the ICMYO, which stands for International Coordination Meeting of Youth Organizations, which is an informal network of youth organizations to which WFUNA is a member of. And Early facilitates the youth and peace building working group. Besides that, we have been involved both by Pablo and other members of the WFUNA staff in various initiatives and activities, and we have tried to provide as much support as we were able to. The most important of these initiatives were Mission Possible, a UN-focused educational program for high school students, the UN Interagency Network on Youth Development, which is a network consisting of various UN agencies whose work primarily relates to youth, and therefore it's important to us. The 147 billion campaign, which focuses on the election procedure for the next Secretary General of the United Nations, trying to make it more democratic and more connected with the people. That's why the name 147 billion campaign. The 7th UNOC Global Forum. UNOC stands for United Nations Alliance of Civilization. There was a youth summit, the main official youth event, side event to that forum, which took place in Baku, Azerbaijan, in April. And Early a member of the YAC, was lucky enough to be selected and represent us all in that occasion. And then finally, the 2016 World Humanitarian Summit, which took place in Istanbul, Turkey, in May, and to which both Early and Necleo were invited to participate as a result of their involvement into the previous consultation groups that they were involved in already in the past. So concluding, as I've said at the beginning, we're a very passionate and involved group of young people who are volunteering for a cause that we really believe in, which is the United Nations, its values, and the fundamental role that the United Nations play in the world today. A role which is performed in many different ways, and it's not always visible, but it often provides a much more effective response to international and humanitarian crises than any other international organization. Finally, I would like to stress one point, that as I said, we are volunteers, meaning we don't get paid for the activity we do, but we are extremely happy to do what we are doing, which is a great opportunity for us. And the main purpose of our job is to actually generate more opportunity and better opportunities for young people like you. So I hope that this was interesting, and thank you very much for your attention. I give back the floor to Pablo.
Thank you, Eduardo, for that comprehensive explanation of what the Youth Advisory Council does. I think you managed to explain in broad the width of the work that the Youth Advisory Council does, and how important it is for WFUNA and for the WFUNA Youth Network. But before going on to Monica, which I was going to give the floor to Monica, I want to ask you something really quick, because I think this is in the mind of the people that are watching us, that are not members of UNA and that would like to join the Youth Advisory Council. We get these emails all the time. How do we join the Youth Advisory Council? So I think this is a good moment to clarify or to tell what are the procedures, what's the mechanism to be part of the Youth Advisory Council. What can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Pablo, for that question. Well, first of all, I would advise all those interested to get as much involved as they can with their local UNYA and UNA. That's the first step and the most important element for getting to the YAC later on. It's very important to be involved, and also do not miss any opportunity that presents to yourself to get involved in an international level. Once you are involved in your local WFUNA branch or UNA or UNYA, then try to participate to a WFUNA program. Try to get involved in inter-UNA meetings that are extremely useful for you to understand how the opportunities that you have and the projects that you could be involved. Then, when it comes to YAC in the specific, as I described while explaining you a little bit more the technicalities of the election process, you must be endorsed by your UNA and get to the next WFUNA Youth Forum, which will happen in 2.5 years from now. At that point, you will have to, lobby a little bit, and it will also be somehow, a recognition of what you have been doing for those 3 years at a local and international level. So get involved, be active on a local and international level as much as you can, and do not forget to visit our blog, follow our activities, and contact us at our email address, which is yac@wfuna.org.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you for that explanation. So now we're going to move to Monica, because Monica Licea is a lawyer at UNA Mexico. and UNA Mexico has a great project where they link the Sustainable Development Goals and sports. So I'll let Monica introduce the project to you. And Monica, why is this essential? Why does UNA Mexico see the importance of using sports and play to teach the Sustainable Development Goals to children? Can you tell us more, please?
Well, thank you, Pablo, for that introduction. And as Eduardo said, it's a pleasure to be part of the YAC. I'm really happy to be here with all the youth, women and men are hearing us. And well, I want to tell you that UNA Mexico celebrates the International Youth Day, and we are really excited to share with young people all around the world. Well, I started in the organization like 2 years ago, and I came to tell you about the UNA. In our UNA, we have approximately 80 young women and men working with us. For a lot of them, it's their first job. We hire recent graduates to implement our projects. Their energy, innovative vision, and entrepreneurship make a difference in our projects. Another part of the team are on their in their late 20s and form part of the administrative team. They are most experienced but young enough to address our challenges with a fresh perspective. We believe so. I want to tell you that we believe in young people and we fully recognize their integrity and professionalism. Well, about our work, we are a non-profit organization and we promote the objectives and principles of United Nations through education, using the power of the play, sports, art, and science. We have designs for programs to empower the children. The name of these programs are Sports for Sharing, Arts for Sharing, Science for Sharing, and Initiatives for Sharing. In Sports for Sharing, our goal is to transform children's relationship. Sorry, this is science for sharing. Our goal is to transform children's relationships with science, mathematics, engineering, and technology, the STEAM, that play a role in tackling global challenges. In Arts for Sharing, we seek development of social skills in teenagers through exploration and artistic creation, so as to enhance their critical thinking, empathic, and creative participation in society through theatrical methodology and creative expression. Young people can reflect upon the role in society. And well, you tell me about the Sports for Sharing. Sports for Sharing, we look that students play in order to strengthen faithful relations, reflect in order to team values, and share solutions in order to solve problems in their communities. Our project runs along a year, and it's designed for children from 6 years to 15. It is built over the social constructive school. This approach lets students to internalize the world's global challenges in a simple way through play. In our programs, we work with 7 values: for play, gender equality, tolerance, respect, empathy, responsibility, and teamwork. These civic values trigger democratic attitudes. Well, I think it's important to mention that the main content of our program is related with the SDGs. We promote that children through games learn about the global issues and they create local initiatives. We currently have 539 approximately thousand beneficiaries amongst children, teachers, and students' parents from indigenous boarding, public and private schools from Latin America and USA. Well, I want to tell you that to ensure success, our programs involve the entire community in its implementation process. Teachers, we work with the teachers and they receive training to replicate autonomously our methodology. Parents get involved in special playful sessions and we look for local athletes, scientists, or artists, depends on the program, or social entrepreneurs. They are invited to share their experience with children. And I don't want to be, well, I want to compare, to share you that we have won several awards, like UBS, Mattel, and Ashoka, and recently we have been designated as a finalist of WISE. WISE is the World Innovation Summit for Education, and each year the WISE Awards of the Qatar Foundation recognize and promote 6 successful initiatives, innovative programs that are addressing global educational challenges. In Mexico, we have working with several companies and governments. The organization has worked like with Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Energy, and the Center for Indigenous Development. Harvard Magazine recently wrote an article about those that I invite you to read. It's called Teaching Children with Care by Aidan Laxton. I don't have the link now, but I can share you with Pablo, or I don't know, how can we do that?
Yeah, definitely. If you, in the meantime, when we have the conversation going on, you can try to look for the link. If not, we can do it later on. But I can share it on the chat, or we can even open it on here on the screen. But yeah, no, please continue, Monica. Please finish what you were going to say.
Oh, okay, Pablo. Well, that's in few words the job that we do. So we are in all the country, and I'm really happy to work here.
That's great. Thank you so much, Monica. And I will come back to you because you mentioned that one of the values that is promoted within your program is gender equality. So normally sports has been seen as a tool to achieve peace, but the link between gender equality and sports, I'm very interested in listening a little bit more about that. But I'm going to give the opportunity to Hafitzi to speak right now. To talk, Hafitzi, it's from UNA Malaysia, and he will talk about the implementation of the SDGs and how can young people be at the forefront, at the center of the implementation of the SDGs in Malaysia. So Hafitzi, what can you share about the work that UNA Malaysia is doing in that respect?
Hello everyone. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Fine?
Yep.
Yes. So basically, the SDGs, there are a lot of goals under the SDGs. In fact, there are 17 goals under SDGs. So our rules, of course, most of the youth always aspiring of making a change, and then there are so many that you can actually try to do. But it's most important from my perspective and also from UNA Malaysia's perspective that we narrow our goals to what we can potentially achieve within our means. So in this context, because UNA Malaysia Youth, we call ourselves UNAM Youth, is still pretty new at venturing into youth activities because the structure of UNAM in Malaysia is basically centered towards people of high rank like ambassadors, diplomats, civil servants, and politicians. Now we are starting to include more youth because we believe that the youth can contribute as much as the people with high ranks are doing right now. But through my leadership and as well as my colleagues' leadership as well, we are focusing our interest towards SDG number 16 and SDG number 17, which is to promote access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels, as well as to strengthen global partnerships for sustainable development. And of course, in doing that, we work at different levels. For a start, we started to look at people who share the same aspiration of making change within your institutions, within your community, or even within your families. So we focus on what we can do first. So the first thing that we actually did was to focus on people who share or who can relate to the ideals of what the United Nations is trying to do, which happen to be youth, young activists, as well as model United Nations enthusiasts. So we reach out to these people, and our organization UNAM has invested some money to make sure that we have activities that can encourage and gauge on the interest that they have to see what exactly that they're interested to do. So for a start, we actually launched 20 United Nations Association of Malaysia's youth clubs in 20 different institutions and communities to gauge this interest about what exactly that our youth are interested to do. And it seems like most of our youth at our level are interested to do change in relation to education, social entrepreneurship, as well as youth empowerment. So from the first symposium that we did, which is the first official event that we had together in Malaysia, we managed to identify more leaders who are interested to do projects on their own, and we supported it. We supported these projects through financial means, networking means, as well as leadership means. So that's the first basis that we did to try to encourage people to achieve SDG number 16. But moving forward, it has been 6 months since we last had that first big event. We realized that in order for us to achieve more of the goals of SDGs, it's important for us to inculcate the values of SDGs itself, which is sustainability within our organization. So we did what's necessary to sustain the organization in long term. First, we actually wrote a new constitution. There's no structure in UNAM Youth previously. There's no law, constitution, there's nothing. There's no funding structure. So we focus on our efforts to make sure that all these things correlate with each other. We did the constitution. We created our own funding mechanism. We are launching our website soon with a digital membership system so that it's more accessible to everyone, not just for modern United Nations enthusiasts or young activists. And then we are also looking at having different partnerships, and that's the main reason why that we approached WFUNA for me to run under the Youth Advisory Council, so that we are looking forward towards more partnerships beyond Malaysia. So I'm the first one who managed to get into the Youth Advisory Council, but beyond that, we're actually looking to have more partnerships with not just WFUNA, but any organizations that would share our ideals to make more activities, more sustainable developments for the interests of our youth within our means. So that's the reason why UNAM again has invested its money, some of the money, with the partnership of some of the corporate partners that we have, to actually have the first World WFUNA Youth Summit, WFUNA Youth Seminar in Kuala Lumpur for the first time, and it's the first in Southeast Asia as well. So we're excited at the prospect of having these global partnerships, because first of all, in order for us to do it, we have to partner local partners, be it corporate partners, NGOs, and the government to make it work, because it's not cheap for us to organize this, especially for a young organization like ours. And the second part of it is for us to actually tap on our friends who are in Southeast Asia, whom has been largely living in their silo because they are not aware about what's going on in WFUNA, except maybe for some people from Malaysia, Singapore, and Philippines. So that's what we're trying to tap on. And we also have a lot to learn from our friends in South America, North America, and Europe. And we are starting to send more people to Europe and North America to learn from our own friends about what we can potentially learn. So recently I went to Doha based on this initiative, and I get to learn a lot from my friends who are doing their own projects in Sweden, Norway, and a lot of other places within the realm of education. So we are still in the baby step of making sure that we reach our SDG goals. But again, as I mentioned just now, we have to narrow down the goals based on what we can achieve. And for now, we are looking at having sustainability within our organization and to tap on potential partnerships that can make the organization grow beyond the United Nations framework. Maybe we can go further than just what United Nations is expecting from us, but to go to touch the ground and to see how we can actually contribute within what we have, not necessarily monetarily, but maybe through voluntary means. So we heavily rely on volunteerism as well as passion. So I think those are the main drives that slowly helping our organization to be more sustainable. So that's what I can share from our aspiration to reach our SDG goals, which is SDG number 16 and 17. Yep.
Sorry, I was muted. I think no one was listening to me. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So you were mentioning the youth seminar, and this is an example of a partnership between WFUNA and a UNA, and UNA Malaysia
Yep.
particularly. We will host the youth seminar at the end of the year in Kuala Lumpur. So please stay tuned. There will be more information coming up in terms of the applications, in terms of the program, so that the members of the WFUNA Youth Network from the different UNAs and UNYAs around the world can come to Kuala Lumpur to be part of this partnership between WFUNA and UNA Malaysia. But I want to ask you a question, Hafizi, because you touched on a topic,
Yep.
you touched a point that it's that I think it's important, because we have an audience. The people that are watching this hangout right now are people that are involved with their UNAs and their UNYAs, and
Right.
this topic also was touched by Eduardo, which is the topic of funding. Funding in the youth sector, or the youth sector, is one of the least funded development sectors in the world. And this is an issue, obviously. So obviously there's a lot of has a lot of comments and conversation on the importance of youth in many regards, in many areas, particularly, for example, the one on that links you mentioned of Goal 16, and also the adoption of the Resolution 2250, which mentions the role of youth in peace-building efforts. But going back to the funding sector, or funding struggle, let's say, what's your experience, personal experience, and what's the experience of UNA Malaysia in trying to overcome the difficulties in funding? Can you share a little bit more about that, please?
Right. Of course, funding is a big issue for any organizations, even for our own. But by the name of sustainable itself, we cannot always rely on donations, as in monetarily, but we can tap on the partnerships that we can actually work on together. For example, for the symposium that we did, the first conference that I mentioned earlier, where we attract youth leaders from all over Malaysia and launched the 20 United Nations clubs throughout Malaysia. What we did to minimize the use of money was that we partnered at an institution so that they can provide the hosting venue, they can provide the audio and visual assistance, and then we tap on the volunteering power of people who share the same aspiration as we do. So I think the first part of making fundraising works is for you to have the right partnership. Of course, for the World Youth Summit as well, we're also looking at partnerships where we can potentially lessen the cost, even though we can't possibly get it for free, but we can actually reduce the cost of hosting it by targeting the right people who would be interested to partner us. One way of doing it is to approach corporate companies so that they can support us through their CSR initiatives. So because a lot of corporate companies are always looking for partners to invest some of their CSR budget, what we can do is we go along the line of what the corporate companies are trying to achieve and try to relate it to something that we want to achieve as well. For example, a lot of corporate companies would want to achieve something along the line of empowerment of communities. So we can present our project along the means of them achieving their goal as well. So that's what I mean by having a strategic partnership, to actually be less dependent on monetary sense, but we can actually tap a lot on the partnership side of fundraising initiative. But of course, the second part of it is within what we can potentially do within the organization itself. So United Nations Association of Malaysia, through the connections that it has with government and retired ambassadors, retired civil servants, I personally tap on the connections that they have to convince them this is something that the youth people need. You need to invest in us in order for the country to move forward, for the organization to move forward, for the communities to move forward. So sometimes it's as simple as meeting different people with the right people that matters, because then the words are going to spread, and then we will get the support through the words of mouth, through internet sharing. And of course, there are other means such as using social media, website, and fundraising, what do you call that? Fundraising websites where you can just donate. But those are the alternatives that we can do within our means. But this is beyond what is before us. So essentially young people need to work hard to actually know the right people as well. So I would suggest that in order for you to achieve your financial goals, then you probably need to venture beyond the boundaries of UN as well, meet different people and create new contacts and have conversations, basic conversations on something that you are passionate about. And the next thing you know is people are going to come to you offering partnerships, and you don't even have to spend money to have something that can engage the youth. And we start small. Most importantly is to start small. Of course, if you're looking at something big right away, then it's hard for you to get the money. But if you start small, gain the right people around, create the right circle around you, and then create a solid volunteering system, then I believe that the fundraising part is going to be settled bit by bit, even though not entirely. So that's what I can share from my experience, Pablo.
Thank you so much. And you mentioned something about investing in young people. I always like to say, if we invest in young people, we don't need a plan B, obviously. So, so I think this is great. This is goal 17 actually, partnerships, and we also struggle at WFUNA sometimes in our fundraising efforts, and we've actually come to the conclusion that the best way to overcome those fundraising struggles is through partnerships. So that's what we try to do. We partner with our UNAs, obviously, but we also partner with organizations who have share the same values and the same mission as us. So I will come back to you, Hafidzi, but Linda from Uganda, she's been having some internet issues. I don't know if Linda, I would like to give her the opportunity to speak, but I don't know if she can speak or she can hear us. Give me just 1 minute to check if Linda's here. Linda, are you online? Apparently Linda is having internet problems. It would be great to hear what Linda had to say, because Linda was the experience of UNA Uganda is actually using Goal 16, which you mentioned, Hafidzi, and linking it to young people, and they work strongly at the national level in promoting Goal 16. But I want to go back to several of you to talk about different topics. So Hafidzi was talking about UNA Malaysia and the Goal 16 and Goal 17 as a priority. Monica was talking about the importance of sports and also other initiatives like science and play to involve children and educate about certain set of values. And Eduardo was talking about the Youth Advisory Council, but I want to go back to Monica. And as I mentioned, Monica, you mentioned gender equality. Like I said before, usually what happens, what we see sports, when we hear the word sports, and is very timely to talk about this because the Olympics are taking place in Rio, but we hear sports as a tool to achieve peace. What about as a tool for gender equality? What's the experience that you have personally, and also the organizational experience, UNA Mexico's experience in working towards gender equality through sports and play? Can you tell us more about it, Monica, please?
Sure, Paulo. As you say, this is an important moment like Olympics. I saw incredible stories, like this gymnastic girl from USA. I don't remember their name. Bailey? Well, let me tell you about
I think it was Simone Biles. I'm not sure if you're talking about.
Yeah, she has a terrible story, but now through sports, she won the gold in Rio. Well, I want to tell you that we focus sports as a way to promote cooperation to achieve common goals rather than competitiveness. This can be achieved by promoting civic values. I want to tell you about one game that we have. This is Ultimate Frisbee. In Ultimate Frisbee, children ensemble mixed teams and ultimate, as the name of the sport suggests. They have so much fun, they even forget the score. Actually, we think that the competition between genders diminish because children learn to be respectful and tolerant among them. So, well, we use gender for and sports to teach children the importance of respect the other gender. Oh, well, let me.
Thank you, Monica. Obviously, a lot has been mentioned as well. I don't know if you have seen this, but a lot has been mentioned of the difference in coverage when a male competitor is competing and a female competitor in terms of the journalist, how they approach things differently. And I think this is a great thing to do. And obviously, the best way I see sports as a tool for gender equality, and obviously the best way is to start with children through play and sports. I see that Linda is online. I see Linda around there. So, Linda, can you tell us more about the work of UNA Uganda and Goal 16? Can you hear us, Linda? We can't. We see you speaking, but we can't hear you. Can you check your microphone? We can't. Unfortunately, we can hear you, Linda. I'm sorry. Yes. So what I suggest is, if I know that it's very uncomfortable because what you say you cannot type it, but if you type it on the chat, I will be able to read it. If a few key points, I will be able to read them to share with everyone the work of UNA Uganda and towards Goal 16, so that we can obviously hear what you've been doing. Can you do that, Linda? Perfect. I think Linda is doing that. So in the meantime, while Linda types and we go back to Linda, I'm going back to Eduardo and I'm going to ask a question to Eduardo because I know that Eduardo has been an avid Model UN fan. And this is from your personal experience, Eduardo. How have you connected the work that you do with Model UN and your experience with Model UN and the work of when you were involved in the United Nations Association of Italy and the United Nations Youth Association of Italy? For our UNAs around the world, this is of particular importance. This is a great tool to raise awareness of the UN. So can you tell us more about your experience of how they come together, how the MUN experience comes together with the UNA and UNYA experience? Go ahead, Eduardo.
Sure. I personally joined the youth branch of the UNA Italy during at the very start of the first year of university. I wasn't aware of the existence of UNA Italy or of WFUNA like during my high school, and I didn't know at all what MUN was. Not even when I started university. MUN in Italy, like that was late 2007, didn't really exist. Like people didn't really participate to MUNs. Like MUN wasn't at all a thing at the university level. I leave you to imagine like on a high school level. So from that year onwards, the situation has dramatically changed. I've been involved in the organization of my first Model United Nations in 2010, after having participated to my very first MUN in early 2010. That was in Vienna, the Vienna Model United Nations, and then later on that year I got involved in the Rome Model United Nations, which is the MUN that UNA Italy organizes officially since 1997, but since 1997 to 2010, only 2 editions were organized, and it was like really a relatively small event for people that were studying for for getting involved on an international level, either on a EU level or in a diplomat for becoming diplomats. So it was a very specific, very technical thing, very technical exercise. MUN since then has evolved in being something much broader and overarching. By being involved in United Nations, you develop a set of skills which will come over and over again during your life, during your career, during your life in general terms. So besides like developing a knowledge of the UN system and debating skills, you learn how to engage with others. You learn about different cultures. You know how to make friends. You know how to keep friendships. From very far away and for a long time, using technology, using digital spaces and opportunities which were not available before, but also which vary in the way you can vary a lot in the way you can use them. And by being involved in these events, you learn how to use these tools in best way. Also, by organizing an MUN, you develop organizing skills. You are involved in managing a project. So you are involved in fundraising, you are involved in lobbying, in partnership. It's really a lot of things which come together. And for me, when I first started to be involved in this process, I fell in love with this project, and I've always been involved. And in 2014, it was a great year because we were hosting in Rome the first ever international United Nations organized by WFUNA on a global level. And that was for us a very important moment because we learned a lot. We already had an organizing capacity very well developed, and that was also why WFUNA chose Rome for hosting the first WFUNA International United Nations. But then we learned so much. Then the next edition of Rome, which took place last year, 2015, was the best ever organized. We had like over 500 participants from 62 different countries. That was quite an achievement. So it's something very important. You learn a lot of things, and really it's the best way to get involved in at this moment with the youth around the world.
Thank you, Eduardo, for sharing your experience, and I of course highlighted this because for our UNAs around the world, Model UN is a big tool to raise awareness of UN values and the work that the UN does. I see that Linda mentioned something here. Unfortunately, we can't hear Linda, but I'm going to read what Linda said in terms of the work of UNA Uganda and Goal 16. UNA Uganda participated in the Freedom from Violence project, which looked mainly at the inclusion of Goal 16 in the SDGs, or the 2030 Development Agenda. UNA Uganda worked with several groups like youth, involved youth, university, high school students, civil society organizations, members of parliament, the police, and the office of the president. The main focus was to build support for the inclusion of Goal 16 in the development agenda. We carried out several activities like dialogues with different groups, breakfast meetings, and well as a Model UN platform, which is UNA Uganda's annual event. We also had several activities with media such as talk shows, in-depth articles, media excursions, and dialogues. UNA Uganda still focuses on Goal 16 in its current work, especially with the youth, since they make more than 70% of the population. So this is what Linda is sharing. Unfortunately, we can't hear her. But for UNA Uganda and obviously for WFUNA, Goal 16 is of utmost importance. I will share with you, we're almost reaching the end of the Google Hangout, but I will share a surprise with you before we go. But before we go, I want to take the opportunity to ask Hafitzi a question because, and really quick, Hafitzi, because 60% of the world youth live in the Asia-Pacific region. So how do we engage this youth in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals? This is of utmost importance. Many young people, and this is my experience through working with young people all around the world, is many young people are very energetic of getting involved, but in many situations they don't know how. So what's your opinion on how we can engage, particularly in your region, the Asia Pacific region? How can we engage more young people and allow them to take ownership of the Sustainable Development Goals? Can you briefly touch upon that, Hafiti?
Yep, definitely. I think the first thing that we need to do in order for the SDGs to be more relatable for a larger group of people in Asia Pacific is to actually use the language, because like it or not, as much as English is widely used all over the world, only people who actually get a proper education or proper reading materials or proper information from the internet that is in English would actually understand about what the SDG goals are. Because if you go to in the rural areas of China, for example, or if you go to in a very homogeneous place such as Japan, people don't use English as much, even though they do use it in the urban context or modern context. But if you want to make SDGs relatable to a larger group of people, because the goals are mostly neutral and achievable within your own means, depending on how you look at the SDGs, you need to make the goals as something that people can understand and imagine it to be something that is within their means. So I think the first thing is to actually make it understandable, and probably WFUNA or the United Nations can make use of the amount of talent that you have to actually translate more of materials or to have more discussions or seminars in languages other than English, not just within Asia Pacific, but also other parts of the region. Because in my understanding, as much as Malaysia uses a lot of English as well, as our as our daily conversational for our daily conversational use, but a lot of people don't use English too. So also the responsibility also falls on us to make it not just in English but also in our local language. So I think it's important in a way that even at global level, this is recognized for young people to relate to the SDG goals. But the second part of it is we can potentially make the SDG goals as something that's not too wordy, but something that people can relate closer to, such as nowadays, you see how people can relate easily with videos or short clips on Instagram, on social media, or even nowadays people walking everywhere with their gadgets, playing games or using apps. So I think this is another area where we can tap on for people to be closer to imagine how SDGs can be implemented. And maybe we can also try to listen to more stories from this region on what people are doing with SDGs, because some people might not necessarily know that what they are doing is actually along the lines of SDGs, because it's something that they've been doing for a long time. Traditional practices, something that's unconventional or something's alternative. But maybe we can dig out all these stories to actually show to people that among ourselves, not just in North America, Europe, or South America, we are already trying to achieve SDGs, but with our own ways. So maybe these are the things, some of the elements that I can think of for people to actually understand and contribute within their mean. Something as simple as um, recycling. Probably it's sustainable as well, but people don't look it that way because they don't understand to begin with. So I think increasing the understanding is very important, and in order for you to do that, you have to reach to what they can potentially understand, which is through language. Second is to showcase stories of people achieving SDGs within their own ways, and to embrace more of these tools that young people are embracing nowadays, because time is moving so fast. Some young people don't even use Facebook anymore, but they just choose to use Snapchat or Instagram, or even, I don't know, a lot of things that I don't know nowadays, because even myself don't use some of the things that people are younger than me are using. So I guess these are some of the things that I can share to answer your question. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Hafidzi. Yes, and I definitely
Yep.
think we also, as UNAs, as WFUNA, as UNAs, as Youth Advisory Council, have a responsibility to take this forward to other young people around the world. Um, it's in that spirit, and this is a moment where I share the surprise with you. We're almost reaching the end. It's 9:57 in New York time, but this is when I talk about the surprise with you. We're launching a call for nominations for WFUNA Young Leader of the Year, and this is precisely to identify the young people that are working on SDGs, on certain SDGs and certain goals, but don't know that they're working on that particular SDG. So this year's call will be on goal 16. So if you know a young person working to achieve just and peaceful and inclusive societies, this is the place to nominate this young person so that it can receive WFUNA Young Leader of the Year. More information will come. As of now, after the Hangout ends, we will go to the UN directly because the UN is celebrating International Youth Day. So there will be an event focusing on Goal 12, sustainable consumption and production. And after that, we will launch the call for nominations for the WFUNA Young Leader of the Year. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank Monica, Linda, Hafidzi, and Eduardo, but I also want to thank the entire Youth Advisory Council and the WFUNA Youth Network, because precisely this is the work that we need. We need more young people involved, and young people are integral to our organization, very important to our organization, and we want to highlight, and as Hafidzi said, we want to tell the stories that motivate. So thank you again for joining us. This will be recorded directly on YouTube, so you'll be able to see this video later on. And please join the event taking place at the UN to celebrate International Youth Day. You just Google UN Web TV, and that's it. That's the way to see the event at the UN. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to New York time to 1 p.m. So once again, thank you for joining, and happy International Youth Day to all of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.